Live from Utah's Wasatch Front, the pulse of the Mountain West, where the issues that shape your life meet the truth that sets you free. Across Utah, across the Republic, and around the world, welcome. This is KMMU.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Goud Crowd. I am your host, Goud, and I am back after a 1 week hiatus because I had other stuff I had to do. I am glad to be back. We have a lot to talk about today. I'm hoping I'll make it 2 hours today. I'm not 100% sure I will, but I will try. I think there's a lot to cover. You can catch us on my X handle, which is Goud, the number 4 Utah. You can also catch us at Main Street Media Utah. So their X handle, Rumble, and YouTube, as well as kmmu.org. And we're on every Monday, almost, from 5 to 7 p.m. Mountain time. Okay, so let's start with, I saw this article, and it actually reminded me of the Pulse nightclub shooting. That was the nightclub shooting that happened in 2016, where an Islamic terrorist went and shot up a gay bar in Florida. You may remember that. And his father was an Afghan refugee who came to the U.S. and then raised a son to be a terrorist. I know, lovely. Well, anyway, they had something last week or I guess it's earlier this week. I guess technically it's last week because it was over the weekend. At least 1 dead and 16 injured after van drives in the crowd at Berlin LGBT event. Notice they don't use Q+. At least 1 person is dead and 16 have been injured after a van drove into a crowd of people at an LGBT-themed event in Berlin on Saturday at around 10 p.m. local time. It was actually... the suspect is known to police. Police spokesperson Florian Nath said, "He is known to us as a member of Islamic circles here in Berlin, and our search for this person is proceeding at full speed." So this is kind of the risk of having, what is this? Some spinning thing. Of allowing Muslim immigration into the country is that eventually it always leads to the same place, and that's where it leads, what you just saw. And so in 2016, it happened in Orlando. I think 50 people were killed in that mass shooting. Oh yeah, Mr. Producer says it was 10 years ago. That's literally 10 years ago. And horrible event, right? Really sad. And it impacted a lot of gay people because they thought, oh, is it safe for me to be able to go to a gay club, to be able to just, go and hang out with people that are similar to me and, meet people and make friends and hang out. What was really fascinating about it, though, is there was an episode of RuPaul's Drag Race where the drag queens actually discussed what happened at the Pulse nightclub. And they probably discussed it for 3 or 4 minutes. The notable thing is they did not once mention that the shooter was a Muslim. And in fact, they actually said it was a result of right-wing politics in the U.S. So I'm always kind of nervous that gay people actually don't understand the threat from Islamic terrorism. And you can see that in these types of events that happen. And so now what you're seeing, because gays actually tend to be on the left, that's the reality of it. And there's kind of this rainbow green, I would call it, because Islam has like the green kind of that symbolizes that religion. There's like a rainbow green kind of alliance, and they work together on left-wing socialist policies. So that's the problem. So now you have gays who are pro bringing in Islamic immigrants, saying we shouldn't discriminate against them, not realizing that in the future they will be your downfall. So there's a lesson from Germany. They've had, I think, as a percentage of the population, they have more Muslims than we do, but this is where it always leads. And we have enough Muslims here and we keep letting more in, that I think this eventually will come to the US. It's unfortunate, to be honest with you, because I think the U.S. is actually the best place to live if you're gay, and it'll probably become unsafe at some point because of our policies and or what I think are basically open borders policies, letting everybody come into the country. So then I did see this was posted by Jen Brown. Tooele, it looks like there is a, and actually it's tonight. You can do written comments through the close of business today. They've proposed a data center for Tooele County. We're still going down this path. And you can see here, this is, if you've ever driven, I think if you drive on 80, you drive by this truck stop, and I guess they're going to do the data center right behind it. So, we've gone through some of the negative parts about data centers. We talked about tonal noise before. We have not, and we will talk about more aspects of it maybe in upcoming shows, because I want to talk about the closed loop water system. Those apparently are not actually closed loop. Like, they actually still use water in large quantities. I really, really believe that we're being led down a path where we're going to end up in a surveillance state. And that's what the data centers are for. They're not for AI. And I say that because, let me show you this. I saw this recently and I was like, oh, this is really interesting. It was China came out with this new AI here, Kimi K3. And I was reading about it, and China doesn't have all the data. They don't have as many data centers as we have, and they're actually able to have better performing, I guess, AI products. And so it's really interesting that they're doing it more efficiently, even though they're a government-run economy. So I don't quite understand it. We are having, I think, like, I'm sure AI does have some useful uses for it. I think it's kind of like a mixed bag, but the way that it's being developed right now is being kind of government driven to do data centers. So the government is subsidizing data centers. Trump is pushing data centers. All the Republicans are pro data centers. Even a lot of the mainstream Democrats are pro data centers. And so they're pushing all this funding into it. And these developers, they're actually just going to build them because they're subsidy seeking. They're not actually doing it because that's where this should go. So Apple isn't building a data center because they think, oh, this is where this should go. Or I don't even know if Apple's building that many, to be honest with you. I think Google and some of those other companies are. But they're building them because that's where the subsidies are. They're not building them because they think there's an economic case for it. And you see this with all sorts of industries in the US. Like data centers is one, windmills is another, solar panels is another. And you can just go down the list of every subsidized industry, and you can see how it actually ends up pushing investment into particular types of industries that's not natural. And that's what I think is happening with AI. The development is not natural. The data center development is not natural. It's being pushed by government. And unfortunately, Trump has made lots of bad decisions over his 1.5 terms in office, COVID being the best example. I think the Iran war being the second. And so I wouldn't be surprised if he walks us into a surveillance state. Unfortunately, I just think he doesn't seem to, for whatever reason, I don't feel like he thinks ahead on these types of issues. And we end up with the COVID response is the best example of a total and complete disaster. And I think it was because he just, for whatever reason, he couldn't rise above the constant propaganda and lead. And I think now you see it with the Iran war, we're basically stuck in a escalation trap that, who knows, probably leads to nuclear war or something. Okay, hold on. Let me send a quick message. Okay, so next one is, we have a big problem. So if you're a Republican, I think we have a huge problem going into the midterms. We're now getting reports about this. And I'll tell you, this has been really interesting to me. I have a lot of friends obviously, that are most of my friends are probably Republicans. A lot of them are big Trump supporters. And one of the things I have noticed is that people are not acknowledging how bad it is out there and what this is going to look like for the midterms. I have friends that think we're going to retain the House because of redistricting. And I'm sorry, I don't think we are. I hope we do. That'd be great. I don't think we're going to, though. I actually think it's really bad out there. And not only because Democrats have massive enthusiasm, but because Republicans are depressed. We're finishing up essentially this trifecta where the Republicans control all three branches of the federal government. And honestly, I think it's been a complete disaster. They haven't accomplished much. All they passed was their one big beautiful bill, and which was a continuation of tax cuts that were already in existence. And then they added some stuff like no tax on tips, which really, I don't think it's a complete no tax on tips. I think it's a dollar amount. No tax on Social Security was up to a certain dollar amount. And then they passed their socialist housing bill. So that's what they're going to run on. These are their huge accomplishments. And then they're going to tell you that, oh, the Democrats are communists and they're worse than we are. And that's about it. And I guess their other accomplishment is we now have an Iran war that's been going on for 150 days, way past their 60-day mark under that War Powers Act, and Congress hasn't authorized it yet. So we have that as well. Really, they're winning. Now, I'll tell you, part of what's going on is they are lying about the media, I think, in social media. It's lying about the money situation between the Republicans and the Democrats. So let me show you what I mean. Here is a post. Oops. Okay, hold on. Let me try again. Here's a post showing you, and this is a type of, I would call it slop, I keep seeing on social media that I think is confusing people. So here's CNN. And they're talking about, you can see there's the super PACs. We're supposed to get excited. Republican super PACs right now have, and this is from today, Republican super PACs have $657 million on hand, and Democrat super PACs has $334 million. The RNC, so the party, the National Party, has $129 million on hand, and the DNC has negative $2 million on hand. Okay, so this is supposed to make you think that from the money perspective, that this is looking good to us, right? That we are in a good position and that we're like beating the Democrats on money. But this is only one piece of it. And let me just add two things so you understand. With super PACs, you cannot, as a candidate, you're not allowed to coordinate with a super PAC in terms of your messaging, right? Like, that's illegal. So that super PAC money, now let me ask that. Candidates do it. I think they do it, but they're not supposed to. And they do it in a kind of like sneaky ways. But this is actually not necessarily helpful for candidates because your super PAC could do stuff that you don't want them to do or support, and then you end up with kind of a messy situation. And really, you can't control the messaging. So I don't know if they'll be there pushing certain issues versus trying to necessarily help your candidate. The other piece is the RNC versus DNC. So party money is not the same as a candidate money. I think the Supreme Court just came out with a case saying parties and candidates can coordinate. But the problem with party money is that it's going to take away independence of the candidates. And I think right now, because Trump is unpopular and the Republican Party is unpopular, there needs to, like, if you're going to run as a Republican, probably for a congressional seat or a Senate seat, you're going to want to make some distance between you and Trump. If the party is the one funding your campaign, they will control your messaging. And one of the things they're going to do is make it so you can't really criticize Trump, right? And then you can't be against data centers or the priorities of Trump and his administration, which could hurt you with voters. So then let me show you the candidate differences. And this is where it's key. Okay. Oh, wait, hold on. What is this one? Let's see what I got. Sometimes I pull stuff up and I forget. Okay, we already did the PAC one. So now let me show you. Here's the candidates. Okay, give me a second. I'm pulling it up. And images, here we go. Okay, So if you look here, and remember, everyone's telling you, oh, we're in great shape. The Democrats have no money, blah, blah, blah. Well, look at this. So in Georgia, we have a competitive, I don't know if it's really a competitive Senate race, to be honest with you, but this is one that the Republicans want to try to win. The Democrat candidate has $42.6 million on hand. The Republican has $2 million. And the primary is over there. So where's the rest of the money? How is he going to make up for that? $2 million is not a lot of money. North Carolina, the Democrat has $20.7 million. The Republican has $3.5 million. Again, huge. That's a huge difference in dollar amounts. In Texas, I don't know if Texas is really competitive or not. I doubt it, but mainly because Tallarico's kind of a nutter. But he's got $21.5 million, and Ken Paxton only has $1.8 million. And this is wild because Ken Paxton is the current Attorney General of Texas. You would think he'd be able to raise more money than that. Maybe this will change going forward. I don't know, but that's a problem, right? That's a huge gulf in terms of spending. So how do you make up for that? And we don't have that much time. I mean, it's July, it's almost August, so August, September, October. So you really have like 100 days maybe until the midterms. Michigan. So here, this is the only one where the Republican has outraised the Democrats. Although I think when you combine these numbers, let's see, 11. I think, yeah, they've combined. The Democrats have raised more than the Republicans. The Republican has 5.7. Their primary, I think, is tomorrow. And this is the one, they have a Muslim guy running, El Said, and then Haley Stevens. And so this one, I suspect what you're going to see is that once the Democrat candidate is picked, he'll probably outraise the Republican here too. And then Maine, I don't know, maybe they don't have a Democrat candidate yet since they knocked out that Graham Plattner guy and went crazy, right? With the weird allegations about sexual improprieties, which I don't even know if I believe. So that one, now everyone's all like, oh my God, we can't have Susan Collins lose. And essentially she's like a Democrat. So I don't even, like, to me, I don't care if she loses. I feel like this is actually wasted money, and we should be trying to get more conservative people into office in states where we should be winning. Like I would say, Georgia, we should be trying to win that. Michigan, Trump won it in 24. Why aren't we able to win it? I think that's the environment is so bad that I doubt that the Republicans will be able to hold these seats. Maybe I'm wrong, but I really don't think this is going to go well. Okay. So, and I guess I did see something that Trump is telling people that they can distance themselves from him. So that's at least maybe a positive. Here, I'll show you this. And so maybe that's kind of promising because I think he's recognizing that he's got some problems. So it says Trump advisors reportedly give permission to Republicans who are vulnerable in the midterms to distance themselves from Trump amid low approval ratings and Iran war, according to MS Now. I mean, I can't tell. I wanted Trump to be this transformational president, and I think he's just run of the mill at this point. Nothing, honestly. His major accomplishments are the big beautiful bill, which I can't name. I named you a few things that are in it, but I don't feel like those would drive anybody to the polls. And they've been implemented in a way that is too complicated. See, to me, if you say no tax on tips, you shouldn't even have to report it on your tax return. Like, we're done. The whole point is these poor waitresses and waiters and bartenders and staff that get tips, is a lot of it could be in cash. I just don't think they should have to even report it. Make it simple. But I think if I remember right, the way the law is written is you actually have to, it's an exemption of a certain amount of taxable income from tips that is not taxable. But if you go over that, it is taxable. And I think if it's on credit cards, it's taxable. So I wish they would have just done it in a cleaner manner. They didn't. And I was disappointed by that. Also, the Iran war, I just talk about a mistake on his part to even go into that war, a total disaster. I just don't get it. I think the whole, it was a talk about he broke his campaign promise, and now I think we're stuck. In fact, I don't see a way out of it, and it doesn't look like he wants to get out of it either. So now there's actually some reporting that there's a lack of enthusiasm now among Republican voters. So forget about Democrats or independents. So here we go. Now I've actually read the Washington Post article, but I wasn't able to. You can't, for some reason I couldn't read it a second time. I read it a few days ago. It charges you, so I don't really want to pay for it. So we'll just go based on the excerpts from it. So this says the Republicans see scary lack of enthusiasm among core voters ahead of midterms. In reliably read Iowa, where open governor and Senate races look surprisingly competitive, AFP action door knocking in suburban Des Moines found voters critical of the Iran war and high inflation. I think this is a big issue for sure. Gas prices are going up again, and I don't think people can afford it. So that of course is going to bleed into everything else that depends on deliveries and things like that, or that's made from petroleum. Some even say they'll back Democrats this fall. AFP, so that's Americans for Prosperity, Action's Nathan Nascimento, about 1 in 5 reliable Republican-based voters are at risk in November, may stay home or vote Dem across Iowa, Ohio, North Carolina, Montana, New Hampshire, and Michigan. Iowa had become a solid red state. You remember when it used to be a swing state when Obama was president, and now it's a solid red state, and now it's at risk. And they actually have an open governor's race. The Republican nominee was not initially endorsed by Trump. He beat the Trump endorsee, and I think he's really good. Like, he's good on Maha. He's actually anti-data center. Like, he's the type of Republican we should be putting up instead of these Trump-backed rhinos that we keep getting everywhere. And look, that could even be, we could lose a governorship. We could lose the Senate seat there. This is bad. Ohio is another open governor's race, and you have Vivek Ramaswamy running against I don't remember her name, a white lady whose name slips my mind. But I will say, I from what I've read, that one is competitive too. Some of it has to do with COVID stuff, but the reality is that Vivek Ramaswamy was not good on COVID. He pushed lockdowns and stuff, just like everybody else. He was helping the governor there, who was really bad, a Republican governor who just locked his state down. Just horrible, And so now I think, from what I read, it seems like that race may be competitive for the general election. Again, Ohio is another one that turned deep red after it had been a swing state. Maybe it's heading back to swing state status, which sucks. Montana is on this list, and Montana is a red state. And now you're looking at it potentially. I mean, if 1 in 5 reliable Republican-based voters show up, I think you make it competitive. You could end up with a Democrat winning in Montana. And they do have that one tranny who's in the state legislature there. But, they don't have, I think all their federal delegation is Republican. But this, again, not good. This isn't good. The top concerns were inflation and the economy. This is a big chunk. This is a scary number. Reaching them at the door usually moves them toward GOP candidates, or at least away from Democrats toward undecided. And that 20% doesn't even include low propensity Trump voters who turn out for him but often skip midterms. Signals Mitchell Brown, Dems as fired up as 2018 when they flipped House, GOP lagging hard. Young men under 40, key to Trump's 24 wins, most at risk over economy and prices. And I could see that 100%. The reality is that Trump, inflation is still high. And just so you know, like, the federal government, it doesn't matter who's in office. They lie about the inflation figures. I wish we had independent people. I actually think the federal government should stop reporting inflation figures, and they should let private people do it instead. I think we'd get better numbers. We may get a range of it, but right now what we get is government propaganda meant to make it seem like inflation is lower than it is, and they totally game it. They exclude some of your biggest expenses like property taxes and stuff from it. or they play games. They say, oh, we're gonna tell you that how much that the equivalent of having a house is, instead of just my property taxes went up 15%. That's inflation. That's my one of my biggest expenses is property taxes, right? Or your health insurance goes up 20%, and somehow, and for a lot of people that's one of your biggest expenses, and somehow then inflation comes in at 2%. It's fake. I wish we had private people doing it instead of the government. We don't. But I think with these young men, inflation is impacting them, and then jobs. The reality is that Trump has not done enough on immigration, and that jobs are still going to foreigners, foreign-born, and women over men. And I think this is having a broad impact. Trump should have fixed that. And he honestly, if the Republicans had done I think this is how they could have won the midterms without any issues. Cancel H-1Bs, cancel OPTs. And OPTs is a program where an F1 student visa after graduating can convert to an OPT. It's optional practical training. They can do it for 3 years, and they can work they're supposed to be training, but they can work at companies, and they do it for 3 years. They don't have to pay payroll taxes, so Social Security and Medicare. So you save 15% by hiring them. And they're taking jobs from American graduates, and they are underpricing the American graduate because they automatically save 15% by hiring one of your peers who went to college with you and is a foreigner. But the reality is, if we want to have foreigners come here as students, they should be forced to go back home when they're done. We don't need them here. I would prefer they don't even come here for college, because I think colleges should be about educating Americans only. I don't want foreigners in our schools. But since this is how we have it, we should at least send them home. The second piece is the H-1B piece, where in all the professional jobs, you have broad layoffs of Americans and then replacement by H-1Bs. I've seen reporting that there are 6 million H-1B workers in the US. Those are 6 million jobs stolen from Americans that could put them in the middle class. So that, if you had canceled that, first of all, wages would go up and they would have to hire Americans. You would have seen a sea change. I think Republicans would have won the midterms. On top of that, Trump hasn't done the crackdown on illegal immigration that needs to happen. So for young men who go into working class industries, construction, plumbing, electricians, all of these things that are jobs that should be able to provide a middle class income, they are flooded with illegal aliens, and Trump hasn't done the worksite enforcement that needs to happen to shut that down. And so I think these young men are out there. I think they want to work. They want opportunities, but because our government, both parties, are selling out Americans and letting foreigners in so that their big donors can get their cheap labor. For the Democrats, I think it's that, plus they like the new voters. But for the Republicans, it's all about their big donors. And so they basically set it up so these young men cannot succeed. And then they turn around and criticize them. They'll say, oh, you're lazy. Oh, you didn't do enough. You didn't work as hard as we did. Oh, like, F you. I feel bad for these guys because, they have a right. Look, if you're born in the US, you have a right to expect to be able to go and get a job and not compete against foreigners in your own country. Those same losers who will tell you that you don't work hard enough, or you need to stop complaining, they will happily take you, especially young men, put you in the military, and then send you as cannon fodder for a war overseas. But then they don't care about your ability to make a living in your own country, the country this is your country. There's nowhere else to go. If you're an American and you were born here, no other country is going to treat you well if you go over there. We're the only country that lets in millions and millions of people and then gives them preference over our own people that are born here. So I'm getting exhausted of this. I thought Trump was going to solve this, but I actually think he's bought out. He's too into his big donors to actually do what needs to be done. And so I don't think he's going to get it done. And I think that the end result will be that they're going to lose the midterms. And honestly, they deserve it. So I don't even feel bad for them because I'm kind of like, You had an opportunity to actually do something different, and you basically turned into George Bush. And you know they're doing a little bit better on some of the illegal immigration stuff, but not good enough. We wanted mass deportations. You know, now I'm hearing like they're going to deport less than 500,000 people in a year. That's not going to cut it. There's 40 to 50 million illegals in the U.S. At 500,000 a year, you're going to end up deporting 2 million. And they keep saying these figures about people voluntarily deporting. I don't believe the figures. Sorry. Okay, here's a little bit more from that article. In Western Iowa, so Western Iowa is extremely Republican, 3-time Trump voter Lance Sulentic of rural Harrison County called the past 3 presidential elections the worst 3 mistakes I've ever made in my life, saying the president failed to keep his campaign promises. Higher gas prices are costing him an extra $300 to $500 a month to ride his motorcycle. That's a lot. I would think motorcycles are very fuel efficient, so man, that's like, whew. We voted for Trump, and he did the opposite of what he said he was going to do, said the 56-year-old retired insurance agent. Wow, he retired young. He cited unfulfilled pledges on $2 gas, fair, cheaper food, halved energy prices, rebate checks, no new wars, building the wall, and deporting 30 million illegal immigrants. Sulentic said he may sit out this year's election or vote Democrat. That's not good. Okay. And I think that there's the Republican Party has a couple of things going on. Number one, there's a certain subsect of the party that they are in what is basically a cult of Trump. And so no matter what Trump says, they just go along with the latest thing. You know, so during the campaign, Trump said no new wars. Then he took us into and now let me say that I don't have an issue with what happened in Venezuela. I actually think good job. Quickly, he took out the leader and then left. And when people are like, "Aren't you going to put in a better government?" He's like, "No, let them handle it." Perfect. Okay, like that is the example of how you use your military power and you use it in your hemisphere, right, where it matters. Clean, complete. The special ops get good exercise in that. Fantastic. No, I have no complaints about what he did there. Then you look at Iran, and you think, and I've had friends tell me, "Oh, Goud, we had to go into Iran because they were on the verge of getting a nuclear weapon." I was like, "Where's the evidence of that?" Trump said it. He's seen obviously more intelligence than we have. I mean, like, come on. This reminds me of the Iraq War and how we were taken into it on these allegations about weapons of mass destruction. And then I never saw any weapons of mass destruction. Maybe someone else did, but I did not. And then we ended up there for how many years, and how many American men and women died in that war, and for what? And you know, like, because I think really, if I'm on, look, here's my view is, if you're if you Alex Thompson says, "As an American, do I have the option to voluntarily self-deport? If illegal immigrants get the option, so should I." I assume you do. The problem is, you know, we give illegal immigrants all these special benefits here. Other countries do not reciprocate. So, you know, like if you go to Mexico, I have a friend, he moved to Mexico, to Puerto Vallarta, and he has to have like a special visa and all this kind of stuff to do it. They're not just letting illegals like show up in their country, right? Except unless the only time Mexico allows it is when they're traversing the country, so they can come to our border and cross it and come into our country. Mexico isn't going to let them stay in their country. So, but you know, with the Iran war, I've had these friends, and they basically they're fully gung ho on this. Oh yeah, we have to take them out. We have to do this. We have to do that. I'm like, okay, I don't think Trump actually justified it. And there's video of Netanyahu talking about how Iran's been on the verge of getting a nuclear bomb since the 1990s, right? I mean, this is all kind of, we want to go to war with Iran. There's some obsession with it. And I just don't see how this benefits us. And frankly, I actually think it's beneficial to Americans for Muslim countries to be especially in the Middle East, under a dictatorship. I know it sounds bad, but the reality is that when they lose kind of that central control, they just go crazy and they become a security risk to us. So, Syria went through that civil war for years after when they were trying to get rid of Assad, and it's a mess. It's a threat to us now. Iraq had what was it called? ISIS that came up there because, again, they got rid of Saddam Hussein, who had this under control, and then we got all these problems with it. Iran, I don't see it being any different. I actually think you want to keep the dictatorship in power. They're not going to be a Western democracy. We don't need them to be. I don't care if they are or not, because, again, it's not my country. I don't live there. So let them deal with it. But for our purposes, we want whatever makes us safer. And I think just having them have complete control over their people was the way that it was safer. Anyway, as you can see, there's no enthusiasm among Republicans. They're showing, a real lack of enthusiasm, while the Democrats are hyped up. I mean, I think Democrats, they can taste the blood in the water. They're ready to go. They're going to flip races. And I think if you're in Utah, we're in danger of losing the supermajority because of the drag from Trump. And I'm not kidding, because I know a lot of people that are feeling really dejected because of the Republican Party. First, because of the Trump issues, the Iran war. Why are we there? What was the point? What is the point of this? First of all, I can't even tell you what our goal is at this point. I know it's been going on for like 150 days. It was supposed to be done quickly. We're now months later. There doesn't seem to be a clear exit plan. And I just don't understand what we are doing. I do know that this is putting Republicans at risk across the country of losing winnable races. And I do believe that if we lose the House majority and potentially the Senate majority, and then I think actually, even if we lose the House majority, I think we'll get amnesty in the second half of Trump's term, which I'll talk about in a minute. And I think we'll lose the country. So I do not think it's worth it to be in a war like this if it risks me losing my country over it, when there was no strategic risk or reason for it to happen when it did. If your goal was to do regime change, you could have done it after the midterms. It would have probably destroyed the Republican Party's chance to win in 2028, but at least you would have maintained some semblance of, I'm going to keep some of my promises for now. Maybe I don't even know if that's good, because if we lose the 2028 presidential election, which, by the way, I think is also a risk, always a risk, then there's going to be mass amnesty for every single illegal alien in the country, and it's done. And I don't think we come back from that. Once you give amnesty to 40 to 50 million illegals, and you're letting in millions of legal immigrants every year, plus student visas, plus OPT and H-1B, like I talked about earlier, it's done. We're gone. There's no common culture, and I know a lot of people feel it because I was born in 77, so I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and that's when I remember stuff. And I do feel like there was a common culture in America. It's gone. And it's gone because there's too many people that have come in here. They're not assimilating, and they don't feel any common cause with their American neighbors. And actually, a lot of immigrants are coming in now, and they're moving next door to other immigrants. So there isn't even an opportunity to really assimilate with those around you. And so when you kind of think about it that way, you realize that it's done. They don't, like, all these people we've let in, they don't share our values because we don't expect them to, and we haven't asked them to assimilate. And there might not even be a way to do it. Like if you're an Indian immigrant, you come and you move into an Indian community in the US, who the hell is going to show you how to assimilate? You're living around people that are from your home country and share your home culture. How do you assimilate with that? You can't. And so, again, we have amnesty. It's done. Like maybe there's even no point at that point. Like, why even bother with this? So that's my fear, though. That's where I think we're heading. And I blame these Republicans for it. Now, in Utah, we keep I can understand why there is this lack of enthusiasm. So you've got the Trump issue, like I said, but then you've also got these party problems. We have, in Salt Lake County, we're constantly removing people from the party. I don't think that helps in terms of getting people excited about elections. Now, there's some portion. Okay, so now Alex says, "You look like a Star Trek villain in that shirt, a female one." Really? Why? Actually, wait, maybe it's not the shirt. Maybe it's the nonsense you're talking about, assimilation. Okay. Anyway, I'm more assimilated than Alex is. So, how about that? But the party is constantly infighting, and there are these people who think, oh, if we get rid of these people, it'll unite the rest of us. But all it does is just it emboldens the people removing people to keep removing more people. So, they kept out the 8 people that they removed. Mr. Producer said, my shirt looks fine. So they had the 8 people that they removed, right? And then we had the meeting where we tried to bring them back, and it lost by 1 vote. Okay, done, whatever. Then after that, they removed the vice chair of the party. Now there's apparently some effort to remove Michael Clara from the party. So you can kind of see like they just, I guess this is kind of the Trump attitude. Well, if you think the Epstein files are an issue, then I don't want your support. So I guess the Salt Lake County GOP thinks if you don't support everything that we do, then you shouldn't be a part of our party, while allowing, by the way, a bunch of elected officials who don't even support the party platform to use the name and to hold office. So think about it. Amy Winder Newton went and raised what was the dollar amount? $35,000, I think, or $45,000 for Equality Utah, so that they could turn around and get rid of and conservative Republicans in the state. And the party didn't do anything about it. They've never censured her. They haven't tried to remove her from the party. Nothing. So they allow an elected official to abuse her position as a Republican, to undermine our party, and they have a problem with that. They have no problem with that. They do nothing about it. But they have a problem with their grassroots who are not on board with everything that's going on, which I think is normal in a freewheeling party. That's normal in anywhere. Like, not everybody agrees on stuff. And you're supposed to have these fights in the party because that's normal. That's natural. That's how you work these issues out. And now people, I think, are probably afraid to bring stuff up because, are they going to remove me next? Maybe they'll remove me. I don't know. But whoever it is, you're probably like, oh, do I want to bring this up? I don't think I want to deal with the drama. You had Governor Cox and Lieutenant Governor Henderson. They literally stole the 24 election. Actually, and I don't think that's the only election that's been stolen in the state, by the way. But that one, we actually have proof. And the party did nothing. Not a damn thing. They just move on. They actually try to shut up people. That's what the Michael Clara thing is. They're trying to shut up the people that expose the fraud. So you have these people that are abused, and Governor Cox isn't conservative. Listen, I don't know, maybe some of you think he's conservative, but I don't think some guy who shares his pronouns with other people's kids, which I think is disgusting, who supports Equality Utah and their agenda, who push the trans agenda throughout the state. I mean, I've gone to rural areas in Utah, and people tell me that in their schools, for example, in Fairview, that they teach about trans issues in their schools in Fairview, and they have trans kids. Like, that's because of Cox. He pushed that because that's what his big donors want. So then you've got remember, like, we are a sanctuary state for illegal aliens because that's what Cox's donors want. He's an open borders guy. And so you kind of see all this stuff and you realize, okay, this isn't very conservative. He's not really a Republican, but the party has no issue with it. What they have an issue with are the conservatives who come out and they're like, we don't like this. We want something different. And so instead of just having those fights and letting people fight it out, we kick people out. So I think that kills enthusiasm. But then so does proposals like the following. There's Celeste Malloy is the co-sponsor of a bill to bring amnesty. Hold on, let me pull this up. Amnesty for agricultural workers. That's how they put it. So let me pull this up for you here. Okay, so it's called HR 9535, and this will give amnesty to illegal aliens who have worked, or it's really a claim to have worked, in agriculture in the U.S. And then it would also expand H-2As to be year-round workers, and we'll go into an article in a minute, but expands it so that they can work in meat packing plants too. And so you can see this is something Celeste is pushing. She supports this. She's a co-sponsor of it. And I just wonder, Mike, even though she's a Republican nominee, do I have to vote for her, even though she's going to abuse her office to undermine my actual top issue? Is that how this works now? So the way people try to sell you is okay, you have to have your fights during the primary, and if you lose, then you are required to vote for our candidate. That is your role. You now have to vote for the person that came up, no matter what they support, no matter how bad they are, because the Democrat is worse. But I believe, and I think there's an argument for this, that a lot of the things that Trump and the Republicans are doing right now would not be acceptable to Republicans if it was pushed by Democrats. Just as an example, that housing bill that passed a few weeks ago, that Trump, remember, he made the big deal about how I'm not going to sign this bill until they pass the SAVE Act. And then basically it went into effect because he had to veto it to stop it. But he doesn't want to stop it because his big donors want that bill that will do things like destroy local zoning. So if you live in a single family home, that has all sorts of incentives for towns and cities to get rid of single family zoning and allow ADUs and allow single family homes to be knocked down to build 4plexes and 5plexes. And for real, you got to go look at the bill. It does all this stuff. It also has incentives to bring Section 8 housing to suburban and rural areas. It's a bill intended to destroy local control and to change our neighborhoods permanently and make them Democrat. That's what it does. That's the goal of it. It's to densify places like where I live and then turn them into Democrat strongholds. That's all. And the Republicans are so dumb. The congressional Republicans are so effing stupid that they pass bills like this. And we have the same issue going on at the state level. And then when the area that they densify turns blue, they all act like they're shocked because it's like they either are incapable of thinking a couple steps ahead, or they're just in it to make money and to get their donors what they want. So this bill, HR 9535, she has co-sponsored it before the general election. So now it is explicit. And by the way, she also talked during the campaign how she supports every type of temporary visa program because her supporters, her biggest supporters, are all people who likely are using either illegal or foreign labor. One of them, for example, is Carson Jorgensen. So he was the previous state party chair. He is thankfully a failed gubernatorial candidate because he would have been a disaster. And he has a sheep ranch in rural Utah somewhere. I can't remember which county, Juab County maybe, or I don't know, whatever. It doesn't really matter what county he's in. He's a huge supporter of the H-2A program because he imports sheep herders, and he doesn't, and he'll say, I can't find an American who wants to do this job. Well, it turns out I actually know 2 Americans, and I'm sure there are more, 2 Utahns who grew up ranching. They grew up on ranches, and they can do that job. Because Carson says, oh, there's not a lot of people with the skill set, and so we have to import them. But there's actually a lot of Utahns who grew up on ranches and have the skill set. He just doesn't want to hire them because they're not going to work for what has been classified as a prevailing wage under the law. So under the federal law, you have to just offer the prevailing wage for the job. And so they have said for a sheep herder, it's $2,132.41 a month to work 24/7. It is the equivalent of $3 an hour. And so Carson will put out advertisements, advertising that as the wage. And he says, if an American applies, I have to hire them over the Peruvians that he imports. Except what moron is going to apply for that job? You could make more doing almost anything else, because he's not even paying the minimum wage for his jobs. And for his job, you have to go out and live with the sheep out on the mountains somewhere, or the hills, or wherever they go to do their eating and stuff. And so when you think about it that way and understand that, like I said, an American isn't going to do that job. It's stupid. So, and the system is designed to make it so they don't have to hire Americans. So now on top of this, and the reality is this, it means that you have all these agricultural communities where if you go to them, the townspeople are doing okay. There are not a lot of job opportunities in those areas because a lot of them are filled by foreigners at these cheap, low wages. The locals in the towns have to put up with the negative impacts of having all these foreigners in their towns. So people that don't speak their language, the increased crime that comes from having these people here, etc. The ranchers, like Carson, are wealthier. They're enjoying, they get to save a buck by doing this, and then they get to have their nice toys and stuff like that, while the townspeople don't have the opportunities that should be available to them in those businesses. This would be the equivalent. Like, I live in Riverton. It's a suburb. There's a lot of like franchises, small businesses. I will tell you, I have noticed a lot more foreigners working in those businesses over the past year or so than I noticed before. And those should be jobs going to people in this area. And if they did not have the foreign wage influence, they would be paying higher wages. You see, what happens is that they get the illegal aliens, like restaurants do this a lot. They'll have them work the back of house. So they'll be in the kitchen in the hot area. They'll be making very little for that job, while they have Americans do the front part of it. But the reality is that cook job, that dishwasher job, those should be very good paying jobs in the back of the house. They are not, because we allow these types of businesses to hire illegals instead of forcing them to pay market wages for Americans. It's the same thing. And by the way, I've noticed, I keep hearing about this, like teenagers, there's not enough jobs for teenagers anymore, which is crazy to me. Like, when I was a teenager, I had jobs all the time. They would pay me basically minimum wage, but that was fine at the time because I didn't need to make a living, right? I was there to make a few bucks, be able to do stuff with my friends, stuff like that. So, but what are we doing to all these kids by not giving them those opportunities? They teach you how to go to work, learn some basic skills, how to work with others, how to get bossed around, those types of things that you need to know as you get older. We're taking away those opportunities from them. And for what? I guess that's my question. Like, what are we doing it for? Now, if you look at these small towns, they don't have these job opportunities. And a lot of times their kids leave these towns to go somewhere else. And I think it's because a lot of the potential job opportunities out there are being taken by foreigners. So if these ranchers like Carson could not hire foreigners at $2,132 a month and 41 cents, $2,132.41 a month, he would have to hire Americans to do the job. And he would have to pay a market wage for that job, meaning whatever it would take to get an American to do it. Maybe it's $5,000 a month. Maybe it's $6,000 a month. I don't really care. Whatever it is he has to pay. Maybe he has to pay a kid $20 an hour to come and do stuff on his ranch. Those are now opportunities that have opened up for the townspeople in the town that is by his house. And it makes it so that those towns become more attractive so that people, when they have kids, their kids can actually stay and they can build a life there. Instead, now what you have is all these rural areas, they're constantly losing population because the children that grow up there can't find opportunities there. And so they have to head to bigger urban areas. The whole thing's really sad, and it's ass backwards. It doesn't make any sense. And the Republicans, all they're doing is they're making it worse. So Celeste is a good example of this. I'm supposed to vote for her so that she can go and do amnesty for a bunch of illegal aliens and undermine Americans' ability to get a job. By the way, just to make this point, her and her sister are both in their 40s. They've never had private sector jobs. These have been two leeches on government jobs their entire life, right? I don't think either of them are married, from what I can tell, and so maybe they're both. Maybe Celeste and her sister are the same, but both of them only work for the government. After Celeste got into Congress, her sister suddenly, with less than 10 years of experience as a lawyer, was made the general counsel of SUU. I mean, these two women are just leeching off of government at every level, and then they're turning around and taking away opportunities from other Americans, and they don't have any stake in this. And I feel weird saying that because, I don't have kids either, but I do have nephews, and I have extended family that has kids. Like I still have cousins that are having kids, and they're young kids. And I think about when I'm thinking about policy, I think to myself, well, how will this policy impact them? So I have nephews, one of them is about to be a teenager and the other one's like a year younger. And I think to myself, well, will they be able to find a job? Will there, or are they going to be competing against foreigners for any job that they want? So, so if someone could explain to me where this goes and how we make this work, I don't know. But so like for me, that's what drives me to want to do certain things. So I think about my nephews and I think, okay, I want to make sure that they can have the American dream available to them, that they can go and they can grab it. And if they work hard, that they're going to make it, which I don't think is the case anymore. But, and they're not going to be, foreigners aren't going to be taking all the jobs. For Celeste, who's childless, I guess that's not her. I don't know if she has nephews and nieces. I guess she's not motivated to make sure that they're going to be able to have opportunities. Or maybe she thinks they'll get special government opportunities that are not available to the average person. That might be how she thinks. It's like, oh, don't worry, I'll take care of them too. They'll get to be a general counsel at another university because I'm going to spend the rest of my life here. Anyway, I find it annoying because I don't think that we're going to get a good solution to this with the current stock of Republicans. And I don't honestly, if I was in Celeste's district, I don't think I'd vote for her. I don't see any point. If she's going to use that vote to go and do amnesty, I'm not interested because that's actually important to me. Alex says, I don't want to work to be a sheep herder because I'm not built for management that way. I'm not sure it's a management job, but oh, bless you, Enzo. But I'd like to apply to be one of the sheep. Does Carson have any of those open positions open? You'd have to ask him. I don't know. Okay, now for amnesty, I actually think we're going to get amnesty in the second half of Trump's term. I think it's highly likely that they lose the House. I think it's possible that they lose the Senate too. That's how uninspiring the Republicans are. But Trump kind of gave away the game in this speech.
Going to be good because, you probably saw I got myself into a little trouble because I said, I don't want to take people away from the farmers. And we're going to do something I think that's going to be good because we want all the criminals out. Everybody agrees that we're finding the criminals, the murderers, the drug dealers. We're getting them the hell out of here. But the farmers, some of the farmers, many of you sitting right here, I have 4 friends right in the 5th row. But some of the farmers, they've had people working for them for years. And we're going to do something. We're working with Christie. And we're going to do something that...
this is from 2025.
We're going to sort of put the farmers in charge. And if a farmer's been with one of these people that work so hard, they bend over all day. We don't have too many people can do that. But they work very hard and they know them very well. And some of the farmers are literally, they cry when they see this happen. If a farmer is willing to vouch for these people,
they cry because they don't want to pay market wages. That's all this is. And not to say this, the whole focus on criminals by Trump is a total disaster. That you're not going to get mass deportations by just seeking out individual illegal alien criminals. That's taking up way too many resources. You need to actually do worksite enforcement to get the mass numbers to actually deport millions. And the fact that he's not doing it should give away that he's not doing it. He doesn't actually support mass deportations, I don't think.
Well, in some way, Christy, I think we're going to have to just say that's going to be good, right? We're going to be good with it because we don't want to do it where we take all of the
this is a good example of what I was saying in terms of there is a portion of the Republican Party that is full of it's full of kind of this is a little bit culty. You can see that this little kid in the back, I don't think he knows, but a lot of these people are clapping at the idea of amnesty. So you just voted for mass deportations. That's what you wanted. He turns around and says, oh, these farmers, we're going to have to legalize all their illegals, which, by the way, there'll be massive fraud if you do that, because everyone's going to say they worked on a farm and they'll all get legalized. This every time they do these programs, massive fraud happens. The whole thing, it ends up being exactly what you think it'll be. And it'll just be a mass legalization program. But he basically says the opposite now. And these people are like, oh, yeah, we support you. Like,
workers off the farms. We want the farms to do great like they're doing right now. So Kristi Noem has done a fantastic job, and Tom Homan. And we're working on legislation right now. Susie, right? We're working on legislation right now where farmers, look, they know better. They work with them for years. You had cases where, not here, but just even over the years, where people have worked on a farm for 14, 15 years, and they get thrown out pretty viciously, and we can't do it. We got to work with the farmers and people that have hotels and leisure properties too. We're going to work with them, and we're going to work very strong and smart, and we're going to put you in charge. We're going to make you responsible, and I think that that's going to make a lot of people happy. Now, serious radical right people, who I also happen to like a lot, they may not be quite as happy, but they'll understand, won't they? Do you think so? Madam Secretary, look at you with a white hat on. Do you think they'll understand that? You're the one that brought this whole situation up.
Nope.
Brooke Rollins brought it up, and she said, so we have a little problem. The farmers are losing a lot of people, and we figured it out, and we have some great stuff being written, and let the farmers be responsible. You probably...
Right. So you can see he supports amnesty. That's the bottom line. He's told you that. Now, I think that's a rug pull, because during the election, he talked about mass deportation. So to turn around and say, oh, actually, we're going to let the farmers keep their million. First of all, I don't even think it's the way they make it sound is all these illegals come. So we have to have 40 to 50 million illegals because apparently farmers can't work on their farms or hire Americans to do those jobs, whatever. But when you look at that, when you look at that video, understand he supports amnesty. And so I think that this bill, HR 9535, he supports it. And there was a video, I couldn't find it, but there was a video where he's actually asked about it. And he says, oh, I'm going to have to find out what that bill says. And I'll get, like, as if he didn't know. Like, whatever. Unfortunately, I don't think he's going to be what we needed him to be. So it's very sad. It's very unfortunate. Marsgate says, I'm being a judgy person now. That's okay. You can do that on this show. But I am glad the two Malloy sisters haven't reproduced. I know, but gosh, they are not good breeding stock just on looks alone. Yeah, I mean, based on looks, like if the goal is to attract a lesbian lover, they both are flawless. Perfect. Like that, they will get that. If their goal is anything else, I would say it ain't gonna happen. Yeah, and look, I think most people can find someone that they want to be with, but I just don't think those two will. Okay, let's see. Anyway, I have one more. Hold on. There's one more thing here on this topic. So, here we go. This is actually what I was talking about. I'll have to read it to you. But so this guy said, this is Peter Ryan. A few weeks ago, the New York Times reported, when asked if he would support a plan that includes a pathway to citizenship for undocumented immigrants, you mean illegal aliens, Mr. Trump said, possibly. He said, this is from, when is this from? It's from January. He said so-called dreamers who were brought to the United States as children should feel safe in the country, and they would love to be able to do something for them. I'd love to have a comprehensive immigration policy, something that really worked. It's about time for the country. Then he talks about the May 23rd, 2025 comments, which I just played for you. Similar statements were reported by Axios on 15 April 2025, where Trump alluded to a path to legal status for illegal immigrants. This isn't exactly new. In Trump's first term, he promoted a proposal to provide a pathway to citizenship for 1.8 million illegal immigrants, which some conservatives called amnesty, such as Breitbart News. Would it be some conservatives, or is it all conservatives? Because if you give legalization to illegals, that is amnesty by definition. In response to the pushback, Trump said, we're going to morph into it. It's going to happen at some point in the future over a period of 10 to 12 years. Mitch McConnell and a spokesman for Paul Ryan both endorsed Trump's proposal. Coincidentally, Trump's timeline lined up with his current second term. Trump just told the New York Times his plans for the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, or DACA, would be updated in about a year. So all that to say, I believe we're going to get amnesty in the second term, or the second half of this term. It'll basically be, it'll mean that this was all probably not worth it, to be honest with you. This is part of the problem, though, with not having primaries, or debates and things like that. When we, in 2024, Trump refused to debate, and I had a lot of friends that were like, "Oh yeah, he shouldn't have to debate," and I was like, "Why shouldn't he have to debate? He's running for president. Of course he should debate in the primaries. He's not entitled to it." But they were insistent. No, he doesn't have to debate. And now look, we have an Iran war. We have potential amnesty. Like I said, I think it's going to happen. And lots of bad policy. Data centers. All this stuff was not being discussed during the 2024 election. It would have been good to have an actual debates where the president participated with his competitors for the primary, for the GOP nomination, and was challenged on these issues to make sure this didn't happen. His first term, I don't mean to be rude, but his first term did not end well. He had really bad leadership problems. Picked bad people. COVID was a disaster. And it was the government response to COVID that was a disaster, which he led. So you have that. Then we have the 4 years where, he's out of office. He comes back. And I think actually a lot of ways there's been a lot of improvements, right? We have, I guess, less turnover than we did in the first term. Although some of these people probably need to go. But if you look at, but then the policies are bad. The data center thing, I don't understand what this is. It's horribly unpopular because data centers don't make sense unless you want mass surveillance, which I guess some people do. But I don't. And I don't want a data center built around me at all. So he's like pushing data centers when they're unpopular. He's pushing an Iran war that's unpopular. And then he's pushing now amnesty. And like I said, any amnesty will be the end of the country. Because if you have the DACA thing, then they'll get all their parents in here. The people claim there'll be all sorts of fraud because this has to be administered by your government workers. And they will allow the fraud to happen and just start letting people get legalized. And then they'll be able to sponsor their parents. And then the whole thing, it'll just be done. There's just no point to this anymore. Mr. Producer says, do not let illegal farm workers in. Cesar Chavez of the United Farm Workers Union did not want illegal aliens. My friend keeps calling me, but I'm on my radio show right now. I'll have to text her in a minute. Hold on. Okay. So anyway, so my question to those of you listening is the following. If you have a Republican nominee who is opposed to all of the policies that you support, right? So if you support, if you want mass deportations, you don't want amnesty, you don't want data centers, if they become the nominee, are you required to vote for them? I would say no. I don't think I owe any of my vote. I don't know how other people feel about it. I am curious. I will say that, so I'm in Mike Kennedy's district. And so Mike, actually, there's this bill that he supports that, doesn't make me want to vote for him, if I'm honest with you. So let me show you this. And I've talked about this before, but it's called, hold on. My friend keeps. Oh, she wants to call it. Hold on. Okay. Let's see what she talks about. 435 900 859. This new number is kind of weird, Mr. Producer. Okay, so this he's co-sponsoring a bill that would create this new visa called the H2C visa, which would allow the importation of workers to fill working class jobs. So, you cannot have a college degree. The job cannot require a college degree, and it's basically the H-1B program to destroy working class jobs. So, this makes me not want to vote for Mike Kennedy. Now, he has moved to the right on a lot of issues, which I appreciate, and I am more open to voting for him, but I need him to remove his name from this bill. And I have heard from some people he's going to. I don't know if he did yet. I wasn't able to find the bill when I was doing my show prep today. I didn't have enough time. But, I also struggle, though, and think to myself, well, he actually maybe he's shown me who he is. Right? I don't know. But he's had a lot of good votes lately where I've been like, okay, he's moving in the right direction. And so maybe now I can say, well, if he removes his name from this bill, maybe it means he learned that we don't want amnesty and we don't want more temporary visa programs and we don't want more foreigners imported, right? So but I'm a little bit unclear where I'm going to go on this right now. I guess we'll see. Hopefully he removes his name, or maybe he already did. I feel bad because I don't know. Okay, I think Marissa. Okay, now let me go to my next thing here. Oh, here, I forgot I was going to talk about this. So then the amnesty bill, this is wild. It actually it expands what the H-2A visa program can be used for. So currently it is supposed to be a temporary program and it's supposed to be seasonal. But it says HR 95335 caps ag wage growth at 3.25% a year and writes slaughterhouse labor into the H-2A law for the first time. The amnesty debate is a decoy. The wage cap paired with easier legal access to a packing floor guest worker pipeline is the payload. So like I said, these meatpacking jobs should be really good middle-class jobs for working class men and women, right? All these jobs should be that. If it was based on market wages, meaning you have to pay what you have, like you have to pay whatever it takes to get an American to do the job, all the jobs in the US will be paying more. But due to constant efforts by our government to keep down wage growth by importing people, we're not getting that. And so across the board, what you see is that people are not able to keep up with inflation, and it's making it harder and harder to live in this country generally. I feel bad for the younger people, but this is like an example of that. Why are we expanding worker programs to now bring in workers to work in meatpacking plants? You can't find Americans to do that? Of course you can. This is bullshit. Sorry, pardon my French. This is totally just meant to undermine Americans, and it's done by leeches like Celeste Malloy. She leeches off the government. She's never had a real job. And yes, I am sorry if you only work for the government. Those are not jobs like the private sector. No offense to anyone that works for the government. Oh, okay. So Marissa, okay.
Hi.
Oh, hey, okay. So tell us your name and where are you from?
My name is Marissa. I'm a Jersey girl. I have no idea what you guys are talking about, but Goud's my best friend, so I'm happy to join.
Okay. Well, tell us, how about this, Marissa? Tell us something about Jersey that you think people should know.
It's amazing. We take no shit from anyone. I just heard Goud curse, so I feel like it's okay to say that.
Oh my God.
Everyone should come to Jersey. Even it's not just the turnpike. It's not a dirt bag place. It's amazing.
Yeah, I'll give you that. I've known Marissa for like 26 years. And the first time I went to Jersey, I remember turning to her and being like, oh, it's really pretty here. I had no idea. It's like Beverly Hills. I was just shocked at how beautiful it was.
Because everyone thinks Jersey is a garbage dump because they only drive on the turnpike. But there are beautiful parts of Jersey. And we call the beach the shore. I know you guys don't have a beach, but if you did, you would probably call it the beach. We're the only place that calls it the shore. We go down the shore, and it is an amazing experience, and everyone should come to Jersey to see that.
Yeah. The shore is really fun. I've been to the shore, and so for everyone, this is a little fun break, I think, from our normal talk about politics. But I remember the first time I went there, we went to a bar and Living on a Prayer came on, and it was exactly as you imagine it would be in Jersey. Everybody was singing along, like it was really fun.
It's our national anthem.
Yeah, that was really fun. Well, what's the weather like out in Jersey right now?
It's actually beautiful. It's been horrible because it's been like 100 degrees with 100% humidity. But in the last few days, it's been like 80 degrees with 100% humidity. So that's a major improvement.
Wow. So tell us, so this is a political show. Do you have any thoughts on like Brandy comes on, Brandy, and she'll give us lessons from Illinois, because Illinois is a Democrat supermajority state. And so she'll tell us like, watch out, here's the latest crazy thing that Illinois is doing. Is there something crazy happening in Jersey? Because you guys have Democrats that run it that like we should know about.
Well, there's crazy shit happening in New York City. I mean, it's being run by a socialist who's actually a communist. And I mean, Mandami's out of his mind. He thinks that he's going to give free shit apart. I'm sorry, I guess we're not allowed to curse. So one thing about Jersey people is we curse a lot. So, I don't know if we're allowed to curse or not, but this is my general vocabulary. But he's doing crazy stuff. And it's like shocking. Like, I'll give an example. So a couple weeks ago, there's like a lot of homeless people. The homeless situation has gotten a little bit out of control in the city. And so the police decided that they were going to deal with it and remove the homeless people from what they were doing, which was basically living everywhere. And then Donnie comes out and says, oh, no. We need to have a conversation with them before we remove them. Like, is that serious? Yeah. What are you going to talk about? Like, would you like to be removed? Would you not like to be removed? What would be convenient for you? Meanwhile, there was an article in the paper how this guy, I give this guy a ton of credit, one of the homeless people somehow figured out how to hook up his homeless tent to one of the electrical poles. So he had like full electricity in his homeless tent.
Oh my God. That's amazing.
Free electricity.
That's crazy. Hey, we have a listener who has a question. Did you get swamped with smoke from Canadian forest fires out there?
1,000%. My sky was orange for like 2 nights. It actually was really pretty. Not like it was 2 years ago. We were like choking and dying. Like I think it was 2 years ago when it happened. This time it was more just beautiful because the sky was really a cool orange color. It smelled like a forest fire, but you weren't choking. But yes, we definitely had that.
Wow. We get it here almost every year from the forest fires. Like we had it, I think maybe a few weeks ago, we had some of the, like, I think from California and stuff, the smoke comes over here and then it kind of gets all hazy for a few days. It sucks. It really sucks.
I don't know.
Okay.
I didn't like it honestly, I'm not trying to be funny. Like, it was actually really pretty. It smelled like people were grilling very intensely. But when it happened 2 years ago, like, you really couldn't be outside. This time it wasn't as bad.
Okay. Well, so the other thing I heard about in New York City is they're going to open government-run grocery stores. They're going to have 5 of them. Are you planning to visit one of them when they open?
Absolutely not.
Are you sure?
Was that enough of a comment? Absolutely not. I'm pretty sure. I mean,
okay.
In fairness to the listeners, I don't cook and I barely go to a grocery store. But if I did, that would not be one of them.
Okay. You do have nice grocery stores where you live, though. So, what's that one that I like? Because just so everybody knows, she lives by the like where the new Real Housewives of New Jersey live. Marissa lives in that area.
Yes. So I have a funny story for the listeners.
Oh, okay.
This is
Let's hear it.
political at all. I'm sorry. This is not what you guys signed up for, but so yeah, I live by the Housewives in New Jersey. My parents live in their town. I live a few towns away, and they're always out and about. I don't watch these shows. I don't really care. But the funny thing is, we have a liquor store called Bottle King. So it's similar to how you guys have in Utah. You have to go to an actual liquor store. They're not ABC stores. They're not government run, but in a lot of states you can buy liquor at the gas station, or not necessarily liquor, but beer, whatever. We don't have that. You have to go to an actual store to buy any alcohol. Like a liquor store, to go to get any alcohol, even beer. But anyway, we have this store called Bottle King, which is kind of like not a discount liquor store, but their prices are really great. But so it's not fancy or anything, but this is why I'm emphasizing this. So my neighbor was in Bottle King the other day, and she's like, "Oh my God," they were like telling us you had to go in one at a time, and there's all these camera crews. The Housewives of New Jersey are filming in Bottle King. That's like filming in Costco. It's like almost embarrassing. It's so fancy. And you're filming in Bottle King? Like, what's the thing? Are you guys arguing about what bottle of wine to buy? Like, I don't understand.
That'll be fun to see what ends up happening when the show comes out, like the episode.
What the hell are they filming in Bottle King for? Bottle King also sells cheese. Maybe they were arguing about cheese. I don't know. But it would be
really fun. It would be fun if it ends up with like bottles being thrown or something crazy, right? Because those women are nuts.
Yes, it would.
Okay, well, we're gonna have to move on to the next thing, Marissa. But thank you for calling in, and actually, you should call in again and give us more insights into New York, New Jersey, because we're always looking to learn from other places so that we don't let it happen here. So please.
Next time, I'll try to be more politically astute.
All right, awesome.
Thank you for letting me call in.
No, we love it. Thank you. Talk to you soon. All right, well, I hope you guys enjoyed that. Maybe we'll add that. That should be like a new thing, right? So we'll have Back Home from Brandy, who will be on next week, by the way. I think she'll have some good stuff from Illinois to tell us. And then we'll get the New Jersey, New York crazy, because there's I saw the grocery store thing today, and Mom Donnie said they're going to open 5 government-run grocery stores that will undercut or that will sell at 30% under retail, he said. So they'll undercut all the private grocery stores. I find it fascinating because I'm curious what the stores will look like, right? It doesn't, probably not everybody who listens drinks alcohol, or has been to the liquor stores here. But, to be fair, they're government run, but they're actually pretty nice. They're clean. I think there's a lot of corruption in state-run liquor stores, but the ones here are clean. They're well kept. The staff is friendly. So if you have a grocery store that's like that, I could see people maybe thinking it's a good thing. I don't know. But then with groceries, though, I don't know, like, can you keep up with the selection? Are you able to keep up with the new products? Do you understand how to move product? If you go to Smith's, for example, like they'll have a discount section, they'll have clearance items. They're always like moving stuff. They're bringing in new products, getting out old products, all that stuff. It just seems like a really complicated business if you don't understand it. So I am curious to see how it works out. And I'm even curious to see if it drives out any of the private sector grocery stores, if they're like, you know what, we don't want to be here anymore. Or will it actually, because if it was me, I'd probably be like, yeah, 30%, I get it, but I'd rather go to the nice grocery store where I don't have to be around all the riffraff. No offense to riffraff. Anyway, okay, well, so that'll be fun. We'll get some good, I like Jersey updates. Jersey's fun. I've been to Jersey a lot, actually. The shore is actually so fun. I recommend it to anybody in terms of if you're looking for a beach to go to, like the water is comfortable. There's so much to do. And the people there are really fun. Okay, so Mr. Producer, the government-run grocery stores completely failed in Chicago and St. Louis. The retail grocers in New York are bailing. Yeah, well, look, I don't really see how it works because the government's going to lose money on the grocery stores. Now he's trying to get at affordability, which I think is interesting, and it's an interesting strategy. I almost wonder though if, I heard someone make this proposal and I like it. I actually think the proposal was instead of food stamps and SNAP and all these government food programs, we could have government funded food pantries that would have basics. So bread, milk, eggs, whatever. And then you could go there to get some limited supply of basics, but then you'd have to work and make money to be able to buy the rest of your stuff. I kind of like that because then you can get rid of all the complications and the bureaucracy built around eligibility. It still raises some questions about it, but it might be like an easier way to deal with making sure people have food who can't afford it. But also making sure that there's incentives for you to work, make your own money so that you can buy all the nice things. Because, it's irritating when you go to the store and, like steak is EBT qualified or whatever. I think that's irritating because to me, it's like, that's expensive and you should make your own money if you want to buy steak. Maybe it's insensitive of me, but that's just how I feel. Anyway, so on this HR 9535, this will allow the H-2A program to start being used year-round, and it will allow these slaughterhouses to import them to be able to work in these meatpacking plants. So I'll just give you an example. There's a meatpacking plant in Spanish Fork, which is within Celeste Malloy's district. And so she would be voting to allow the company, the owner, to replace his or her American workers with foreigners. That's what people there are voting for. You're basically voting to allow your job to be legally taken by foreigners, to destroy your opportunities if you're voting for Celeste. That's all this is. And so it says here, okay, so there's two other sections of this bill that are doing something separate, not the amnesty piece. And they're the part of this bill that actually will move money for the first time. H-2A statute is being rewritten to cover slaughterhouse labor, and the wage rate covering that labor is being capped by law. That's happening while the Big Four tighten their hold on processing capacity, and while one of them already faces a federal lawsuit over the kind of labor pipeline this bill would make easier to run. Section 3 of this bill rewrites the statutory definition of agricultural labor or services. For the first time, that definition explicitly includes the harvest and processing of meat and poultry, specifically the slaughter of animals and the breakdown of carcasses. Packing floor work has never before been written into H-2A eligibility language this directly. Pair that with Section 2K, where the adverse effect wage rate is capped at no more than 3.25% higher than the prior year, and wage floors for field and livestock worker occupations are calculated together as one pooled category. Slaughter and carcass work now sits inside a wage formula built for crop labor, anchored, capped, and pooled downward. So it'll damage, this will actually bring wages down for Americans. This isn't hypothetical. JBS, one of the Big Four, and it's foreign owned, is already accused of building exactly that kind of pipeline. A federal class action complaint filed against the company alleges a JBS-linked TikTok recruitment campaign lured Haitian migrants to its Greeley, Colorado plant with promises of easy pay, no English requirement, and housing, then packed arrivals into motel rooms with up to 11 strangers, pushed them onto dangerously fast kill-for line speeds, and treated them worse than non-Haitian coworkers. In June 2026, a federal court denied JBS's motions to dismiss and strike the case, and it's now headed into discovery. So, and then independent ranchers and regional processors get nothing equivalent. No capital support, no processing capacity relief, just the same wage-suppressed labor pool, now formally extended to the kill floor. Meanwhile, the domestic and H-2A workers actually doing that labor get a statutory ceiling on how fast their pay can rise. About 35% of the hired agricultural workforce was already working without authorization as of FY24. The population of this bill is nominally built to address, and none of that changes the wage math once slaughter work is folded in. So this is just evil. I'm sorry. Like I think this is evil. Government should not even be involved in setting wages like this and trying to suppress wage increases. This is happening across the board. We talk to people. This is what they talk about. They're not making enough money. So you are listening to and watching KMMU, Main Street Media, Utah. We're live on X, Rumble, YouTube, and our website, kmmu.org. Hit the like, subscribe, and share on your favorite platform at Media Utah on X and YouTube and KMMU on Rumble. So I find stuff like this really problematic because there's a concerted effort by the government at various levels to suppress people's wages. All while, by the way, the people doing this are working for the government. It's Celeste Malloy and her sister have only leached off government. They've never had a real job. So, and here, I'll just show you this. We were having this discussion yesterday because there's an article that came up about how Utah's had a big drop in its fertility rate. It's an interesting article. It's worth a read. And if we have time, I'll pull it up. But I think we do not, due to, you can see here I talked about it, but due to constant illegal and legal immigration influxes, we're not having the wage increases we should, because wages are a function of the market. So it's demand and supply and demand. And because the government actively is constantly increasing the supply of labor, wages are not rising to make up for that. And so I thought Danny On responded, and she said, wages aren't really rising anywhere, and she was correct. And with private equity ownership of okay, so that's that. Then I said, this is true. I said in here, I'm shocked at the wages that I see for attorney work. When I got my first job as a practicing lawyer, because I clerked for a year, and I think I only made like 48,000. Then I went to DOJ and I made maybe 60,000 my first year. And then after that, I made 70,000, like that. It went up. But I see jobs, lawyer jobs today being advertised at like $80,000. And my first lawyer job, I got it in 2004. So after I don't count clerking as being like a real lawyer job, because you're doing it more for the experience and the pay. But once you go and you start working, actually practicing, you're doing it for also to make a living. And so if I made 60,000 22 years ago, I think inflation has been more than 100% in that time. So the idea that you would pay people 80,000 today, what the hell are they supposed to be able to afford with $80,000? Nothing. And by the way, like I didn't have a real student loan burden. I think this is before they did all these reforms to the student aid, and so it was cheaper. And then when I got out, we were able to consolidate all of our student loans. So I consolidated for 30 years. So, the next few, I'm still paying my student loans, but I pay, like, the interest rate is less than 3%. So if inflation has been what I think it is, I'm actually like the value of the loan balance has gone down. And I pay like $300 a month, which is, when we did it at the time, I remember that one of my law school friends was like, he's like, we should all just consolidate. And by the time we pay this thing off, that payment will be basically like going to McDonald's to eat. At the time I was like, well, I think you're exaggerating a little bit, but he's essentially correct. I mean, it obviously doesn't cost $300 to go to McDonald's, but things have gone up so much that $300 is nothing compared to what it was when I first had to start paying it. So our wages have not gone up, but that is a direct function of the government purposely importing people to suppress wage increases. That's how they think they're going to fight inflation. And then their other thing is, well, we'll bring down the cost of groceries. Well, no offense, but groceries aren't even the biggest expense you have. And I know we all focus on it. Like, I understand. But your biggest expenses are probably, actually today, it might actually be housing. Or I mean, not housing, it might be healthcare. Because if you're not getting health insurance from your employer, when I talk to people who get it from the marketplace, the cost is insane. Then you have housing, property taxes, those are income tax, that's a huge expense. Payroll taxes, I mean, you're talking like 50% of your income is gone, probably more by 60, 65, 70, who knows? It's like most of your income goes to those things. And they're like, oh, okay, we're going to get grocery costs down. Well, what about property taxes? What about the cost of housing? Because the interest rates are going up to get a mortgage, which means that I can't afford a house. People can't afford homes anymore because the prices are too high and interest rates are too high. So I'm not seeing how that works out for people. Okay. So now we've gotten through that. I thought this was interesting. This is about the Iran war, which, unfortunately, I don't think we're getting out of this, but here's Nancy Mace posted this survey she did. I don't know if this is like a scientific one or she just did it on X, and so it probably depends on who responded. But it has almost 1 million views, and it's got 52,500 votes. And the majority of the people said they would support ground troops in Iran, which kind of terrifies me, to be honest with you. I can't think of a worse idea than sending ground troops into Iran. I'm not even sure what the purpose is. Like, what are we doing? If the goal was that they shouldn't have a nuclear bomb, I'm thinking that after we bombed them all this time, that's not really a threat. So now what is the goal? Oh, and I guess it's opening the Strait of Hormuz or whatever, but the only reason it's closed is because we're at war with them. So I assume if we just leave, that they would just open it up because it's in their interest to have it open and to collect a toll. I don't know. That scares me that people are thinking like that. Maybe we need to have more people join the military so everyone's got a little bit of skin in the game and they're not so eager to send other people's kids to war. Okay, here's another. I thought this was interesting. I have an election integrity thing, but I saw this video here. I thought this was interesting. So this woman's at the World War II
there. So that woman's splashing her feet in the water.
Well, everyone is. This is like disgraceful because it says honor our veterans, right? It says like don't go in the water. And
See, here it says you can sit with your feet in the water. It's okay at the World War II Memorial. And then it says you can't walk in the water. And then
that kid is literally going in the water. And you can see that like people are just walking in the pool. See all the water that kid just flew? Yeah. And then there's those ones over there chasing the ducks.
Yeah. Like, this should be a place of, like calmness, you know?
See? Oh, just fell. See? Oh. It's so disrespectful.
Like, it's not a water park.
No, it's not a water park. This is a war memorial.
It's a memorial, yeah.
Okay. So I just think this is interesting because I'm not 100% sure what I would expect from kids. And I think some of this is because the kids featured here are obviously, they're a product of immigration. So I don't know if this is normal behavior for all the kids that show up there. Because it's DC. If they just film this, it's very hot during the summers. I could see kids enjoying this. And the sign says you can stick your feet in. So I guess is the idea you have to put your feet in and be totally still, because I'm just not sure how you enforce that. And, like this kid kicking in the water, is that disrespectful?
I hate everything about it. And then in between us and Lincoln is a reflection pool. So let's go take a wander.
So I just want to point out that here it says sitting with your feet in the water is okay.
So it says, at the end of World War II, troops celebrated in the fountains of Europe. In honor of that time, you may sit with your feet in the rainbow pool, but you may not walk, swim, or sit in the water. So it's just kind of I don't know what to think about this because, again, when you're talking about little kids, in a way, I'm happy that they're going to the memorial because maybe they'll learn something there. And especially, if they don't have a connection to World War II, this is a way to get that connection to make them understand kind of the huge sacrifice that happened by Americans in that war. And so there's probably a positive to this. Obviously there were some kids walking in the water and they should follow these rules. But if they're sitting there and they do something like splash each other, I guess I'm just trying to figure out, is that bad? Is that a problem? I don't know. Hard to know. Okay. And then let's switch to election integrity. So I saw this, and I think this is interesting. There's this new group called Utah Election Integrity Network. And it's these kind of, I would say they're kind of the establishment types. It's Alexis Ents, this, I can't remember, I think Barton is his name or something. Barton. So he says, let's see. Oh, so Michael Clara said, Utah's very own RNC committee woman, Kim Coleman, posted this photo of her with BP Vance at the Massachusetts GOP election integrity event, right? She informs the Massachusetts GOP that she serves on the RNC Vote Protect. Has the Republicans Election Integrity Committee looked into this? Into the 2024 Utah GOP primary election steal and subsequent cover-up orchestrated by LG Henderson or Lieutenant Governor Henderson and the Attorney General. Now, and Kim also says she's a co-founder of Utah's Election Integrity Network, which is a new thing that has just started recently. So I think his name is Barton. He says, for someone who cares as deeply about election integrity as you do, I find it odd, petty, you would choose to vilify perhaps Utah's most formidable champion. Maybe it's time to work on your bridge building skills instead. I mean, here's the problem I have with this. In 24, Lieutenant Governor Henderson knew, and her staff, by the way, they all knew that they did not have 28,000 signatures, which they had to have to be placed on the 24 GOP primary ballot, but they still put themselves on the ballot and then they covered it up. So what they did was illegal because they didn't have the number of signatures and they covered it up. Now, there has been kind of this thing out there was, I don't see what where the intent was here. Like what was the reason that they did it? They could have collected more signatures. And I think what people are not actually understanding is that I don't think anybody has actually collected 28,000 signatures, 28,000 verified, legitimate signatures for a statewide race. So just there's two ways to get onto the GOP primary ballot in Utah. One is you have to get at least 40% of the vote at the GOP convention. The other is if you're in a statewide race, you have to collect at least 28,000 valid signatures from registered Republicans in the state. Right. And so what makes 24 different is that Governor Cox and Lieutenant Governor Henderson only had one path to the ballot because they went to the GOP convention and they got less than 40% of the delegate vote, meaning that the only way to get on the ballot at that point was through signatures. So if they did not have the 28,000 signatures, which they did not, and they knew, and they should not have been on that ballot. That's a fact. That's a fact. Now, what I think is kind of interesting about this is that, again, getting to this intent question, people think there has to be this deep, we're gonna cheat the system, we're gonna commit fraud. No, this is the first time I think this has really come up was in 24 in multiple races. Because if you look at the 2020 race, I believe Governor Cox actually claimed, just so you have a sense of how ridiculous this is, that he got volunteers to collect 28,000 signatures for him. Okay. And that was a lie. But let's see what he got at the convention. Because I think in 2020, it didn't matter because he had at least 40% of the vote at convention. Let's see here. Oh. let's see. The convention. Let me see if I can get a number on this. I don't know what the number is, but hold on. I mean, you only got 36.1% at the in the primary convention. Okay, so at the convention, he got 55% of the vote. So at convention, he qualified through the convention to be on the GOP primary ballot. So even if he cheated on those signatures, it wasn't an issue. He had access to the ballot anyway. But in 24, what changed is he did not get at least 40% of those delegate votes. So the only path to that ballot was through the signatures, and they didn't have 28,000 signatures. Now, we don't know exactly how many fraudulent or forged signatures they had in 2024 because Lieutenant Governor Henderson will not let anybody see the signature petitions that they used. Under any circumstances, she will never let you see them because she knows if people see those signatures and how it was obvious that they were forged, that she will never be able to win election again. Okay, she's a fraud. But now and so we've been kind of dealing with this, trying to get ways to get those ballots. I don't think we're going to be able to get those petitions is the reality of it because Utah's law is so first of all, like our legislature is a disaster. It's filled with a bunch of ballless wonders. And so they don't stand up to the governor and they don't stand up to the lieutenant governor. They allowed the 24 primary to be stolen because that's what they thought was best for the state. I think someone told them that. The powers that be, their donors, whatever it is. And so what they made reforms to our signature gathering laws based on what happened in 24 to prevent it from ever happening again. However, they didn't actually force the release of the signature petitions and they should have actually impeached and removed Lieutenant Governor Henderson from her position. But they didn't do it because there are a bunch of words starts with P. Even though I could say it, I'm going to be polite and not say it. But they're a bunch of wusses. And so she's basically going to get away with a crime. And honestly, like she's a pathological liar. I can go through it, but she at the 2024, well, first of all, she stole 2 elections for Celeste Malloy. So the first time Celeste wasn't even qualified to get on the ballot because there was not a resident of Utah. The second time, in the 2022 race, 2024 race, when Colby Jenkins challenged her, some of the ballots went to Vegas. They could have accepted them. The law would have allowed it, but she didn't because, again, they would have flipped the race to Colby, and she wanted Celeste to win. So that's 2 examples of cheating. You have our own 24 election example of cheating. And then she lies all the time. So she went to the GOP convention in 2024 when they lost and they realized that delegates didn't like them. She actually went and accused delegates of harassing her nieces and nephews, and it was a total bullshit lie. And this is what she does. She easily lies when she is talking or moving her mouth. She is lying. I don't know how that woman sleeps at night. I think she lies even about, she claims to be LDS. I don't think she's LDS. I think she just uses LDS people to get into office and power. And I don't even know if she's straight. She's married, but people that lie like that, everything you have to ask a question about everything. Now, on to this election. Marsgate says Cox needed to be impeached along with Henderson. I agree, 100%. But I don't. The thing is our legislature, they're just useless, and there's no competition. That's the thing. So in New York, there was the Attorney General. Oh, Mr. Producer says cowards is a better word than the word I want to use. So we'll go with cowards. In New York, they have Tish James. She's their Attorney General, right? And she wanted to run for governor. And so she actually went and had her office investigate all these sexual harassment claims against Andrew Cuomo and knocked him out of the race. I mean, seriously, she totally just destroyed his career. Our Attorney General is so cucked He's a cuck-servative. And so he didn't do any of that. He didn't invest. His investigations were sloppy. He didn't charge people for forging the signatures on Governor Cox's petitions. He didn't expose how many forged signatures there were. He didn't try to shut down the gathering. Nothing. When he could have done that stuff and helped his own political career. But it should give you a sense of how controlled these people are. They're all total. I don't know what controls them. It's their big donors. There's some establishment power in the state that is controlling things. I'd love to know who it is. But and so these guys all are just controlled. They're just controlled opposition. And I mean, it's different here since it's a Republican state, but they don't do anything. So, you know, as some of you guys know who listen, we had filed this Rule 60B motion that in a case that Michael Clara had done with the grammar request. He took it to the district court. The Attorney General's office lied about the existence of responsive records for months, maybe even a year, I think, over a year. Actually says July 2024 all the way through September 25, when a whistleblower released a copy of the report that he had been asking for. So they denied that there were any responsive records to his grammar request. And then finally, a whistleblower came forward, released a copy of the report he had been asking for, or I should say, released a report that would be responsive to his request. And then we did this Rule 60B motion to get relief from the judgment because it was based on newly discovered evidence and fraud. We won on newly discovered evidence of 60B2. Then we are trying to get additional records from the Attorney General's office that are responsive to Michael's request. Well, we've been in this meet and confer process with the Attorney General's office for months, and what they'll do is they'll respond to us and they kind of ghost us and they disappear. So finally, we're like, okay, we're just going to file a motion to reopen discovery because we need the court. We need to be able to use the discovery process to get the documents we want, and then also to have a fight about redactions that they're doing that I think are inappropriate. So I wanted to show you guys one of the footnotes from that filing that we did. So here we go, and I'll read it to you. Because this gets to my point about we don't know the actual number of forged and fraudulent signatures and invalid signatures. So there could be some that were invalid but not forged. So here's what we said. The exact number of forged signatures on Governor Cox's 2024 petitions is unclear. The 3 separate audits conducted in 2024 arrived at different conclusions as to the number of signatures that Governor Cox was short. 300 short September 2024 audit conducted by the state auditor at the request of the Lieutenant Governor. 665 short October 24 audit conducted by the Office of Legislative Auditor. 1,000 plus short December 2024 audit conducted by the state auditor at the request of the Attorney General. So just so we're clear, all 3 audits conducted by the government. I got to say, I think when you have this type of thing happen, you actually want a third party to come in and do the audit, independent, not government, because unfortunately, these people are all biased. They're all friends. They're all looking to protect each other. And that's just how this works. And like I said, they're all controlled by their donors. So then we said, according to the state auditor, Governor Cox submitted 32,883 signatures to qualify for the 2024 GOP gubernatorial primary. Now, keep in mind, he needed 28,000 valid signatures from Republicans to get onto the ballot. If 30% of his signatures, so earlier I talked about this in the motion, but the Attorney General's office, they redacted a portion of Tanner Letham's interview. Tanner Letham is the CEO of Gathering Inc. And there's no statutory basis for them to redact it, but they redacted it because it says that Don Ibsen, who's another client of theirs that they collected signatures for, that more than 30% of his signatures were invalid, so either forged or invalid for another reason. And normally they only have a 15% buffer because that is plenty for them to be able to qualify. This time it was 30%, and Don Ibsen did not qualify for the ballot through the signatures. He actually qualified at convention. So that's at 30%. So if the 30% of his signatures were invalid or forged, then he only had 23,018 valid signatures, far below the 28,000 required by Utah Code Section 20 Alpha 9-408 subsection 8B1 to qualify to be placed on the GOP primary ballot. Currently, it is unclear how many signatures were forged. None of the post-election audits identify the exact number of invalid and forged signatures submitted by Governor Cox. The victims of forgery, and this is important, also were not notified that signature gatherers took their information from a computer program called Votive and forged it on Governor Cox's signature petitions. There is also no evidence that Gathering Inc. complied with the requirements of Utah Code Section 13-44-202, requiring companies to notify Utah residents if their personal information has been misused for identity theft or fraud purposes. So you have potentially thousands of people. And if you look, it's not, I mean, Governor Cox isn't the only person that had forged signatures. There are other candidates that also had forged signatures. The victims of, and the way that they forged them is that Gathering Inc., and Tanner Latham talks about this in his interview, they buy voter data from a company called L2, who buys it from the lieutenant governor's office, and then they place it into this program called Votive. They then give each of the signature gatherers access to Votive, and then areas where they're supposed to go and get signatures. When they can see voter data in that program, and so they basically, what they did is they go through it, they write down the person's name, address, whatever you need for the signature, and then they just do a signature. They don't have the signature, so they just make up a signature. Meaning they're forging your signature not by looking at a previous one, they're just forging it randomly. And that's why the handwriting will all be the same, because they don't have anything to go off of. So they're just writing, they're just going down and filling these things out. And what I mean by that is if you can actually, the gatherer can fill out your printed name, your address, like that information that you're required to fill out. But you have to actually sign it. But because they don't have something to go off of in terms of your previous signatures, they're just making it up. Well, a person's only gonna be able to do so many variations of signatures. And the other problem is those are not gonna match what's in the system, which is how they catch the forgeries. So, but they're taking, the reason they can do it is they're taking your information out of this software program, and then they are writing it on the petitions. So the company itself is giving access to voter data, and none of these voters have been informed about what happened to them. It's criminal. The whole thing is criminal. And they're not doing it because the reason why they're not informing the victims is because they don't want anyone to know how many forged signatures there actually are. And that should bother people. That's not okay. Okay, Mr. Producer says I should play this video from Natalie. So why don't we play this? This will be a good maybe closer to the show today. Let's see what we got. I think I watched this before, but I don't remember. Here we go.
I ran against Mr. Disagree Better himself and his running mate, Deidre Henderson. About a month ago, I received an email from the Lieutenant Governor's office wanting to schedule me for a hearing in front of the Government Records Office because they wanted to label me as a vexatious grandma.
Oh, yeah. So we'll run a couple minutes over, but just so you guys understand, the Lieutenant Governor's office is trying to label us vexatious requesters because they're trying to shut down all grandma requests into the 2024 election so they can destroy all the documents. That's kind of the background of what's playing here. So let's see what she says.
Requester. In Utah, we have a system that's similar to a FOIA request, but ours is called a grandma request. It's the Government Records Access Management Act. And that is the process by which people can go to request government documents. A few years ago, our legislature passed an addition to our grandma code, which allows for a vexatious requester penalty. So if somebody asks for too many documents, then they can have this label put on them and not be able to request documents for a period of time. As you may know, Phil received over 67% of the delegate vote at the state convention and should have been placed directly on the November ballot. Instead, he was forced into a primary when Deidre Henderson said they gathered 28,000 signatures and should be allowed to compete against us in a primary. We asked to see those signatures and see those petition packets, and it was denied. So my first grandma request happened on June 10th, 2024. I asked to see the petition packets, and it was denied. I actually have...
What's crazy about this is they changed the law, making it so the candidate or representative, well, actually, it's only one person which is, again, the legislature, they don't do anything well. I'm sorry, they just don't on election stuff. The candidate or a representative, so only one person can go and look at the packets. So I requested them on behalf of Phil for Celeste, and then the lieutenant governor's office, they're like, okay, it's going to cost you this much money. You can only have one person there. You can only spend this much time doing it because that's all the time that we have. So basically trying to shut down my ability as a representative of Phil's campaign to be able to see the actual petitions. Like, they do everything they can to make it so our elections are not transparent and so that we're not able to actually look at what they're doing and how they're giving people access to the primary ballot. It's criminal. The Deidre Henderson is a crook. That's the bottom line. Okay, let's keep going before I get worked up about this.
Only made a total of 3 grammar requests in the last 2 years. And the last request I made was clear back in November. So when I got this letter from the lieutenant governor's office trying to allege that I was a vexatious requester, I mean, I had to laugh. And the lieutenant governor has never fulfilled any of those requests. To determine if someone is a vexatious requester, they are supposed to look at, in code, it says they look at the number of requests, look at the scope and nature of the subject matter of the request, the nature, content, and language of it, and a pattern of conduct. I can't see how anything I did would merit a vexatious requester. But now we have a lieutenant governor's office who's seeking punitive actions against me by labeling me as a vexatious requester, and they want to continue to hide information from us and deny any ability to ask further questions. So I don't like that. I think that's terrible. I think it's an abuse of power, and I don't think they should be doing that. And I've spent the last 2 days responding to this complaint against us, and it actually wasn't just me. They also filed it against Michael Clara, Phil Lyman, and Goud Maragani, Phil's attorney. So this is a very coordinated effort by the lieutenant governor's office to continue to conceal information and now to try to make her political opponents label them as vexatious requesters and deny any more ability to see documents. Well, we know there's problems in them, and we've seen it, and we've discovered those. We've talked to witnesses and victims whose names were forged on these documents, and we know there's problems, and we know that there's a reason why they are continuing to hide this information. So again, when there's smoke, there's fire. This is a huge problem. You know, Michael Clare, the last time he even did a grammar request was 14 months ago. So this is just bizarre to get these allegations from the lieutenant governor's office at this point. But we submitted documents to Lonnie Pearson at the government records office. He will look at those and decide whether he will schedule us for a hearing or not to determine if we are vexatious requesters. And I hope he can see through what's going on and this political maneuvering that is being done by our disagree better governor and lieutenant governor.
She's much nicer about it than I am. I'll just say, I don't even understand why the legislature added that vexatious requester crap into the grandma bill. It's bizarre to me how there's such a fight against basic transparency in elections. And so this is a message to the Election Integrity Network. If you don't have transparency, you don't have clean elections. That's just how it works. And so you guys that want to be, you're like Johnny come latelys, oh, we're fighting for election integrity, while ignoring an actual stolen election in the state, you're not going to be successful in what you're trying to do, unless your goal is just to get special favors from establishment candidates and to get, you know, whatever that, maybe that makes you feel better about yourself. It's unfortunate because you could actually have a real impact because you are actually establishment figures and they'll listen to you, but you're not actually fighting on the issues that matter. Can't ignore a stolen election and then claim that you're for election integrity. Marsgate said, I did some grammar requests and didn't get any answers. It would have taken lawyers to try to make them. Maybe I would have ended up digging myself in a black hole. It's all greased and rigged. It is. And on that note, thank you for listening to the Goud Crowd. It's been a pleasure. I'm your host, Goud, and we are on almost every Monday from 5 to 7 p.m. If I'm not going to be on, I post it on X. So anyway, we'll see you next week. Like I said, we'll have Back Home with Brandy will be on to give us more warnings about Illinois. And we'll see if Marissa wants to come back on to give us a warning from New Jersey. You know, I think our goal on this show is both to kind of understand policy, figure out how to make Utah more conservative, and also like to fight the destruction of our country that's happening before our eyes. And then also, to educate people. So we'll see you next Monday.